I don't know where Fat Joe is getting his information from. Maybe some Puerto Ricans did call him hallucinating. There were stories about Tupac getting violated and or touched in prison. That is a lie, an absolute lie. And the dude that asked him to rap was like, yeah, you know not to come out to the yard. And he had to be removed because once again, the administration viewed him as a threat. When Tupac came to Clinton, I remember it vividly. I remember the day that he came. He came to Lower F. Lower F was long term. That's where they housed you, unless you was going to the box. But it was also reception, where you stayed for 3 days so that the sergeant can come see you and interrogate you to see if you needed PC, see if you had any enemies or things of that nature, if it was safe for you to come out in the population. Pac didn't have those problems. In fact, I remember when Pac came and dudes knew him, they was asking them to rap, they was asking them to do all this clown stuff, cornball stuff that thorough niggas don't even, you don't ask another man that. One dude was being persistent. So when the CO came around for the yard, and you have to give your cell location, whatever cell location that you're in, you would say 21 yard. Pac didn't put down for the yard because he was tired. And the dude that asked him to rap was like, yeah, you know not to come out to the yard. Pac yelled out through the bars, yo, CO, put me down for the yard. Put him down for the yard. His gate cracked, Pac came out, but they couldn't let him out. Another CO said, nah, he just got here. He's reception, back in the cell. The next day, he went to the mess hall, and I remember that day. The whole mess hall song, and they just started banging the table. Thug life, thug life, thug life. And the COs looked at each other. They heard him, but they didn't realize just how famous he was, because he was famous. This was Tupac. It's in his bloodline. Black Panther, BLA, that militant blood. They automatically put him in administrative segregation. Administrative segregation is whereas you're a threat to the inmate population, or you're a threat to the COs, you're a threat at large. So they put him in that mid-seg, APPU, and that's where he stayed. And I remember that day. APPU was a federally funded program for high-profile cases. People like Son of Sam, Sean, Old Dirty Bastard, they were in there. He was not in general population. He had to be removed because, once again, the administration viewed him as a threat. The last thing they wanted in Clinton-Dana Mall, the largest maximum population in New York State, was an uprising or Clinton-Dana Mall thinking that they had a messiah. They was not having that. They did not want that, not in that environment. Tupac was the type of dude that you could approach him. He didn't give off the energy that he was not approachable. I witnessed him speak to a lot of people. Dudes would nod at him. Dudes would say, what's up? Dudes would shout him out. Pac. Dudes would be like, thug life. And Pac would crack a smile, recognizing that they recognize him. Even under the condition that he was in, I think he appreciated that. I know I appreciated him because I listened to his music. He was a stand-up dude, always. Because I worked in the law library, I had interactions with Tupac. 3 separate interactions. 2 pertaining to the package room, and 1 just in the hallway, because we was both in H block, but he was in upper H. In any event, there was no talking in Clinton, but certain COs would allow you to speak, because once again, they knew who he was, or they finally figured out who he was. So we would nod at each other or see what's up. There were stories about Tupac getting violated and or touched in prison. That is a lie, an absolute lie. That never happened. That never happened. For one, I was in Clinton from 1990 to 1999. The majority of people knew me. I'm not going to go into detail about who I was in that particular jail, what I had, things of that nature. That's neither here nor there. Tupac never had a problem. He never had a problem with anyone. Not the Puerto Ricans, not the blacks, not the Muslims, not the Nietas, not the Kings, nobody. Where he was at, no one could get a hold of him. No one could get to him. as so many allude to, and he wouldn't have had that anyway, period. Can anybody picture in their right mind this man allowing somebody to touch him, period, in any way, shape, form, or fashion that was negative or sexual? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It did not happen. And anyone who says it, it was a lie. And I stand on that. He was not in population. So once again, and I have to keep mentioning this because no pressure was applied to Pac at all. And I knew the gangsters. They knew me. Nobody never spoke about that. Just didn't happen. Tupac didn't have any situations in prison. And some may argue, well, was you with him 24/7? How could you possibly know? Once again, I had an institutional pass. The jail shuts down at a certain time. And I was in Clinton from 1990 to 1999. So you can just imagine how many people I knew, from inmates, staff, anyone. It didn't matter. So word was going to get back to me. Nothing happened to him. And I cannot stress that enough. Nobody was putting pressure on him. Nobody was doing anything to that man. Absolutely nothing happened. I saw the biopic about Tupac where Clifton Powell played an OG. I do believe his name was Floyd. And not for 1 second do I think that that individual Floyd portrayed me in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I was not that boisterous with Pop. When we saw each other, we would speak or give a nod, and that was the gist of it. But I knew everything that was around him. I knew the people that was around him. And he had some good dudes around him, like my boy Uni. A lot of people didn't like Uni because Uni was a gangster. Uni was into extracurricular activity at times, but that's him. That's prison. Everybody got a bid to do. He was around my man Big C from Albany. He was around a bunch of other dudes. So that person, Floyd, could have been portrayed by any one of them. I don't know where Fat Joe is getting this information from. Maybe some Puerto Ricans did call him hallucinating, fronting, trying to get some bread out of him. I don't know what the case was. But one thing I do know, nobody was putting pressure on Tupac. Nobody was putting pressure on him. You don't put pressure on people on that mid-seg and APPU. You can't get to them. It's impossible. Once again, I had an institutional path because I worked in the law library. After the Attica riot, a whole lot of laws changed. Doesn't matter if you're in a box, long-term keep block, in a hospital, wherever you are and you request law books, they have to come to you by law. You may be under escort by a CO, or you may not be. But the law books have to come to you. And every time I went to his particular tier or any other tier, but specifically his tier because he's the topic of discussion, wasn't nobody doing nothing. You cannot get to that man. You can't get to anybody in there. So what Fat Joe was saying is absolutely wrong. Maybe he was told the wrong things. I'm not saying that he's lying per se, but that is a lie about him being extorted by the Puerto Ricans or anybody else for that matter. It just didn't happen. Would the COs have given him a hard time, or did they give him a hard time? No, really they didn't. After they found out who he was, they definitely didn't want to give him a hard time. They were more curious about him than anything else. Because I remember this one specific sergeant, Sergeant LaValle. The LaValle, they were a big family in Clinton, Dannemore, consisting of sergeants and correction officers. I remember one day he gave him a ticket. In fact, I think it was a grievance. I think Tupac filed a grievance for something. In any event, Pac had to sign it, and I remember Sergeant LaValle saying, wow, I think I should keep this because this is probably going to be worth something later, or this guy's a real star, this guy's a rap star. And I just looked at him, briefly, and I said, yeah, this is what type of party it is right now, huh? Y'all realize who he is, but really don't know how to approach him, or just ask him for an autograph, or say something positive to him, say something, anything. But in any event, nah, they didn't give him a hard time. They didn't give Pac a hard time at all. He really had a decent bid. He really had a decent bid. I need to say that people are going to think what they want to think about Tupac at the end of the day. But one thing is for certain. Tupac was his own man, and that's how he lived in prison. He was his own man.